Folks, we have some pretty breaking and important news regarding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback position. Now, the legal tampering period starts tomorrow on Monday, and it seems like Baker Mayfield, former Cleveland Browns, former Carolina Panthers, former LA Rams quarterback, is at the top of the priority list for the Buccaneers as their next option. Joining me is my colleague from BucsNation.com, co-host of the Cannon Fire podcast, Mr. Evan Wanish. Evan, here is the official tweet from Ian Rappaport. When free agency begins, the Bucs are expected to target ex-Rams quarterback Baker Mayfield as a potential starting quarterback option, per me and Mike Garafolo. This could be competition for Kyle Trask, their former second-round pick, who the team likes a lot, as Tampa Bay plots life without Tom Brady. Mike Garafolo followed up with that tweet by saying the Buccaneers are looking for a veteran free agent quarterback at the right price. They have a few guys they'll check in on, but Baker Mayfield could wind up making the most sense from a fit and a financial standpoint. Evan, pretty huge news here. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would think so. Really, the first, we've heard, uh, you've heard all off season, right? The speculation of a veteran quarterback, and the names that have been thrown out there: the Baker Mayfields, the Jacoby Brissett's, Taylor Heineke, Gardner Minshew, like names like that. But you haven't really heard that from, there's been talk, but you haven't heard it really from an NFL insider like Ian Rappaport, and you also haven't heard a specific name. So this is like, like the Bucs will be targeting Baker Mayfield. This is a specific name, so I think it's quite noteworthy, and especially with we're on the eve of free agency, the tampering period as well. So I think the timing of this is also pretty significant.
Now, me and you can speculate, right? Because we don't get in trouble for speculating about things like this and potentially saying, oh, this sounds like a done deal. But me and you talked right before we started recording. The wording on this is really interesting, right? It seems like, they're saying, hey, they're going to be targeting Baker Mayfield. And just the way that these tweets have been constructed by Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo, it sounds like that they're already pretty much set on bringing him in. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I do think they could look at some other places, but it's just the way it's said. Just when free agency begins, the Bucs are expected to target. Now you got to remember, these media guys likely know some deals that have happened already. Like there is some deals because a lot of deals happen at the combine. Honestly, like
Yeah.
it happens. Like the legal tampering period starts tomorrow. These teams have been tampering for weeks now. So a lot of these media guys, when they get a tip about something, they can't just come out and say it. So they have to sort of twist their words a little bit to kind of say that, but not really say that. And I just think the way it's worded, it has me that feeling. Now, I mean, as Garofalo noted, that they're going to look in some other spots, but then he comes back to, well, Mayfield may make the most sense from a financial standpoint. To me, again, that's twisting the words to make it sound like, well, it's not done, but it basically is. So again, this is speculation on our part. We haven't personally heard anything that is done. It's just the way the wording is and what we know these media people can and cannot say. I think you can point to that.
Now let's talk about the possibility, right, of Baker Mayfield signing with the Bucs. As you said, one of the first names, if not the first legitimate name to be connected to the Bucs, right? There was that Jimmy Garoppolo talk a couple of weeks ago, but that wasn't anything besides saying, hey, the Bucs might not be able to afford Jimmy Garoppolo. This is the first name, and it's a pretty strong connection already, of course, where, hey, the Bucs are going to consider this guy. Seems like they're going to heavily consider Baker Mayfield. What do you think the Bucs are getting in a guy like Mayfield? I mean, that's to me and you have talked about it off record, off camera and whatnot. Like Mayfield's a guy that he was on the top of my list for the Bucs. I know he was on the top of your list as well. Him and like a guy like Jacoby Brissett, but we both thought that maybe they wouldn't be able to afford a guy like Baker Mayfield. But that's pretty strong competition, if not a guy that, again, as Ian Rappaport said, could legit be your starting quarterback for the Bucs. What do you think that the Bucs would be getting in a guy like Mayfield at quarterback?
Yeah, so like you said, it's strong competition. This isn't some undrafted free agent or anything. This is something to where I think if Mayfield is brought in or a guy like Jacoby Brissett, um, I think you could look at that as legit competition. Like Kyle Trask will have to play better than one of those guys to to be the starting quarterback in Tampa Bay, and both those guys, while it hasn't been a ton, both of those guys have had success in the past in this league. Baker Mayfield went to the playoffs as the Browns starting quarterback in 2020. Jacoby Brissett has always, been, for sort of a steady Eddie, but he's done the job. He's had success at times. So I think either one of those guys, and then a guy like Drew Lock, who hasn't had much success, but has a lot of traits. I think any of those guys, but more specifically Baker Mayfield and Jacoby Brissett would both be like you said. You use the word perfectly, like legit competition, and yeah, I don't think this job will just be handed to Kyle Trask.
Yeah, I think out of all the available options, and look, people have said in before, like, oh, James, you trash Kyle Trask. I do not. I think that many people can see that, like, I am a huge Trask supporter, Evan. I think that you would agree with that as well. But when you look at Baker Mayfield, like, I would say out of all the options that are out there in terms of free agent options, he's the guy with the highest upside. And he is that guy where if things aren't going to work out with Trask and he does lose that battle, he gives you the best chance to win right away. And that's what Todd Bowles and Jason Light want to do this upcoming season. They still want to have a pretty legitimate chance of winning football games. And I think that whenever you do bring in a guy like Baker Mayfield, I think he gives you the highest upside for not just the chance to do that, but I mean, shoot, Evan, if he plays well, let's say he is the starting quarterback, he could be your guy for the next couple of seasons, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a former number one overall pick for a reason. There's something there. Obviously, I think a lot of people like his attitude. Is like kind of like screw you attitude that he can carry, right? And a lot of people think it's fun. So there is, there is something to be said about that. And I think you look at what Dave Canales was able to help Geno Smith with last year. Geno Smith was a high profile college quarterback, was picked pretty high in the draft, not as high as Mayfield. Smith was a second round pick. But you wonder if Canales could do this again, could really help Baker Mayfield turn his career around. And if they do, let's say the Bucs do end up signing Baker Mayfield, you could talk about, Baker Mayfield potentially being the Bucs starting quarterback for 3 or 4 or 5 years because he's still young enough. I think he's 28. So this isn't like and it may be a 1 year deal, but it may be like a Geno Smith situation where 1 year deal, you play well, and they sign you long term. So we'll have to see what happens if Baker Mayfield is their guy. There's a lot that can happen. In the 24 hours or so. One thing that's interesting to me is that Ian Rappaport tweeted it at 11:59 a.m. That is almost exactly 24 hours before the legal tampering period officially begins. So I don't know if it's a coincidence, man. I don't know if it's a coincidence.
There's threads there, Evan. But listen, folks, let us know your thoughts and opinions about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers targeting Baker Mayfield at the start of free agency. Do you want to see the former Cleveland Brown, Carolina Panther, LA Rams quarterback join the Buccaneers and battle it out with Kyle Trask for that starting quarterback job? How do you think Mayfield would do? Let us know your thoughts and opinions about this down in the comment section below. We would love to hear it. Go check out Evan's work over at BucsNation.com and over at the Cannon Fire podcast. I was just on there yesterday with the main host, Rhett Matthews. So, folks, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, folks, we'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.